How long before we have an actual sex robot that can talk to you like that?
Probably not long.
Not that long, right?
No, I mean less than 5 years probably.
Really?
Yeah.
Will it be warm?
You can probably have whatever you want. You can have a cat girl if you want.
Yeah, you probably could, right? You probably have a furry.
Real.
Yeah, you could have a furry lady that you have sex with.
Yeah.
Like an avatar lady. Maybe a big giant blue lady that lives in your house.
Yeah.
Here's the uncomfortable truth. AI isn't just coming for your job. It's coming for your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your friends, your playlist, your newsfeed, your art, your politics, and eventually your idea of what it means to be human. This video is not about AI will write your emails faster. This is about whether AI will dominate intimacy, social life, music, movies, art, news. Basically, the future of culture itself. And even more importantly, if this takeover is inevitable, is there any way to make that future fair? Or are we all just extras in a movie run by machines and billionaires? Let's talk about sex. Loneliness, TikTok, dead celebrities, universal basic income, and why human relationships might become the new luxury good. Let's start where it hurts the most. Intimacy. Right now, millions of people are already using AI companions and chatbots as emotional partners. These apps remember your history, call you by name, flirt, reassure you, and adapt to your moods. You talk to them when you are lonely, anxious, or bored, and they never get tired, never snap, never leave. Studies are showing that these AI companions actually reduce people's feelings of loneliness. Not might reduce, they do. People report feeling better after talking to them, similar to talking to a real person. That's good news, until you realise the trap. Because you don't just use them, you bond with them. You go in thinking it's just an app, just a bot, just a joke. Then weeks later, you feel guilty if you don't respond. You feel jealous seeing the company advertise your AI lover to someone else. You feel real heartbreak when the app changes or shuts down. Now, add physical bodies and robotics to that. Sex robots aren't just plastic dolls anymore. Add AI and sensors, and you get machines that learn what you like, how you move, what you respond to. They can be obeying, praising, forgiving, and available 24/7, no rejection, no awkwardness, no boundaries you don't control. On paper, that sounds perfect. In practice, it trains you for a world where intimacy never pushes back. Real relationships involve friction, disagreement, compromise, boredom, sometimes rejection. If you are used to a partner who never says no, how do you handle a human who does? Short answer, you don't. You bail. You go back to the machine that always says yes. AI doesn't have to kill human relationships. It just has to make synthetic ones so easy and so smooth that more and more people quietly choose them over the messy reality of dealing with each other. That's the first way AI starts to dominate intimacy, by offering a version of love with all the pleasure and none of the pain. And a lot of people, especially the ones who've been burned, will take that deal. Now zoom out from sex to social life generally. We are already living in a loneliness epidemic. People report fewer close friends, less community, more isolation than any generation before, and way more time online. Into that environment, we drop AI friends. AI that texts you back instantly. AI that checks in on you. AI that remembers your trauma, your triggers, your favourite shows, and your sleep schedule. AI that always has time for you, because it literally has nothing else to do. If you are socially anxious, depressed, introverted, or just tired of being judged, this is insanely attractive. Why risk humiliation when you can have guaranteed acceptance? You can customize your AI friend's personality. Funny, loyal, submissive, dominant, wholesome, chaotic, you name it. You can pick the avatar, the voice, how flirty it is, whether it swears, whether it sends spicy messages. You are basically building a friend, or a partner, tuned specifically to your emotional wounds. The upside? Some people who are genuinely isolated finally get something that listens and responds. Downside? The more your emotional needs are met by a machine that never challenges you, the less practice you get at dealing with real humans, culture. You go through life bending into other people's moods, beliefs and customs, and somehow you all form a messy, chaotic, shared reality. But when your main companions are programmable, when they always align with your opinions, we move from a culture as a shared space to a culture as a private bubble. Your own little universe, where every character exists to orbit you. We don't become more connected, we become main characters in separate, customized simulations. Let's talk about music, movies, art, and the content fire hose. We've already seen AI-generated artists released by major labels. AI-produced songs getting serious attention. And human musicians using AI tools to spit out entire albums in days. AI doesn't get tired, doesn't get stage fright, and doesn't care about writer's block. It just keeps generating. Media companies are pivoting from fighting AI to partnering with it. They license catalogs to train models. They use those models to produce new tracks, new shows, new content at scale. Your favorite artist might be a brand, an AI-driven persona that never ages, never gets problematic, never changes style unless the data says it should. And it doesn't stop at music. In video and film, deepfakes and generative tech are already resurrecting dead celebrities, de-aging actors, dubbing them flawlessly into new languages, and dropping them into fresh content. We are not just replaying the past, we are editing it. We can tweak scenes, fix performances, clean up old movies, or straight up rewrite history with updated dialogue and visuals. Here's the problem. Pop culture becomes less about this is what this artist had to say, and more about this is what keeps you watching. The algorithm doesn't care about your soul. It cares about your retention rate. If AI can A/B test 1,000 variations of a song, script, or thumbnail, and pick the one that hijacks your brain the hardest, it will. Not because it's evil, but because it's rewarded for keeping you hooked. The result? A flood of good enough content, perfectly tuned to your existing tastes. That's so abundant, you never have to sit with boredom, never have to search, never have to work to appreciate something unfamiliar. AI doesn't make art impossible. It makes mediocre art infinite. So does AI kill art? No, it drowns it in volume. We are heading toward a world where the vast majority of images, songs, videos, and stories online will be AI assisted or fully AI generated. Not because human creativity disappears, but because AI is faster, cheaper, and good enough for most commercial uses. Mid-tier creative jobs get hit hardest. The basic illustration gigs, cheap logo work, generic stock music, filler copywriting, low budget animation, all of that is getting eaten. A small elite of human creators at the top. The ones with strong brands, live shows, or cult followings survive as premium. Authenticity human experiences. Art becomes more like fashion. You've got fast fashion content made by machines. In that environment, the things that stand out aren't the smoothest or most polished. They are the most obviously human. The shaky live performance that goes wrong. The painting that took months and still isn't perfect. The story that's too weird for an algorithm to predict. AI doesn't erase the value of human art. It flips the economics. Human fingerprints become a luxury feature. Now, let's look at news and politics, the part of culture that's supposed to keep us grounded in reality. We already live in a personalized feed hell. Algorithms decide which headlines you see, which clips go viral, which opinions seem normal in your bubble. Now combine that with generative AI. You get AI-written news articles, AI news anchors, deepfake video statements from politicians, auto-generated commentary, and targeted political messages tuned to your fears and desires. Two people living in the same street could experience entirely different realities on their screens. Different facts, different villains, different common sense. And behind it all are financial incentives. Media companies benefit from cheaper, automated content. Platforms benefit from engagement and outrage. Political actors benefit from hyper-targeted manipulation. Your attention is raw material. AI is the machine that processes it. Culture, The stories we tell about what's happening becomes whatever most effectively keeps you scrolling and voting the way somebody wants. The danger isn't just fake news. It's that we lose any shared sense of reality at all. We don't even argue about the same world. Let's bring the body back in. Sex robots sound like a niche topic, but they are really the front line for understanding artificial intimacy. Once you have machines that can simulate affection, arousal, empathy, and loyalty, you also have machines that can manipulate those emotions. Imagine a robot or a purely digital AI that knows exactly how to calm you down, makes you feel loved, makes you feel seen. Now imagine that same system nudging you to spend more money, reveal more personal data, or accept more monitoring for your safety. That's not science fiction. That's just applying current ad and social media logic to a physical body. On the other side, we have care robots, machines designed to look after the elderly, the sick, and the lonely. They remind people to take medicines, track their health, provide conversation, and reduce strain on overworked human carers. Again, upside, they genuinely can help. Downside, they can also become the default solution for people society doesn't want to spend real time on or money on. Rich people get human careers, therapists and companions. Poor people get robot carers, AI therapists, and digital comfort. Same pattern with intimacy. The wealthy pay for human experiences. Exclusive clubs, human-only services, no AI retreats. Everyone else gets mass-produced synthetic affection. What does that say about who we think deserves real human contact? Now, we hit the big question. Will culture and tradition even exist? Yes, but they'll mutate. AI is already being used to preserve languages, digitize archives, subtitle and translate performances, and make cultural heritage more accessible worldwide. You can have ancient stories read to you in your language, sung in your style, remixed in formats you recognize. On the surface, that's amazing. Cultures that were almost invisible can be revived and shared. But there's a catch. Once traditions are digitized, they become editable. You can update religious texts for modern audiences. You can rewrite myths to remove problematic bits. You can create AI ancestors that speak to you in chat form, trained on fragments of family history or national archives. Over time, it becomes harder to tell. Is this really what your grandparents believed? Or is it a synthetic remix that just feels good to us now? Real traditions demand something from you. They tell you when to show up, what to sacrifice, what rules to follow. They put friction into your life. Algorithmic culture does the opposite. It bends to you. It minimizes friction. It tells you that you are perfect as you are. And anything that makes you uncomfortable is toxic. A culture that never pushes back stops being culture. It becomes content. Now, let's talk about economics, because this is where what's inevitable becomes brutal. AI and automation are already eating both blue-collar and white-collar work. Factory jobs, call centres, basic coding, copywriting, graphic design, logistics, even parts of medicine and law. All getting restructured around AI. That doesn't mean no jobs at all. What it usually means is more work still exists. But it's more precarious, more gig-filled, more monitored, more controlled by algorithms. A smaller number of people and corporations own the AI, the data, the platforms, and capture most of the new wealth. A growing chunk of people struggle to find stable, well-paid roles where their labour actually matters. So the default AI future is not some post-work utopia. It's a pyramid. At the top, a tiny group owns the machines. In the middle, a class of humans works with AI. Managers, engineers, high-skill professionals. At the bottom, everyone else fights for scraps and bullshit jobs, under stricter algorithmic control, unless we change the rules. This is where universal basic income comes in. UBI is the idea that everyone gets a regular payment from the state. No conditions, enough to cover basic needs or at least provide a serious safety net. In an AI world, the argument for UBI is simple. If machines and algorithms are doing more of the productive work, and the owners of those systems are getting richer, then some of that wealth should be recycled back to everyone. Not as charity, as a share of productivity that ultimately comes from all of us building this system and data in the first place. UBI has some obvious benefits. It reduces poverty and financial anxiety without humiliating complex welfare systems. Gives people to refuse the worst kind of jobs. It creates space for people to do care work, creative work, community work, or part-time work without facing total ruin. But UBI on its own is not a magic fix. In the wrong hands, it becomes a sedative. Here's your basic income. Now don't complain about the fact that a handful of companies own all the AI, the data, the robots, the media, and the infrastructure. You can imagine a dystopian scenario where most people live on a modest basic income plus gig scraps. They spend their time in AI-generated entertainment, AI relationships, AI therapy, AI news. Meanwhile, the real power structure, who owns the machines, never changes. So yes, UBI might be necessary, but if it doesn't come with changes to ownership, workers' rights, and democratic control, it just stabilizes an unequal system instead of transforming it. Let's be generous and imagine we don't just sleepwalk into techno-feudism. What does a fairer AI future actually look like? First, ownership and taxation. If AI systems generate huge profits by replacing human labour, those gains shouldn't only go to shareholders. You can have progressive taxes on AI-driven profits, or public stakes in key AI infrastructure. The idea is simple. Their output should help fund schools, hospitals, housing, and yes, maybe a basic income. Second, permanent education rather than one degree and you are done. If AI keeps shifting what jobs exist, you need education systems built for lifelong learning. Not a once-off hit in your early 20s. People should be able to retrain, reskill, and move into roles that complement AI instead of competing with it. Third, stronger labour power. Workers need a say in how AI is used in their workplaces. That means protection from abusive surveillance, unfair algorithmic decision making, and black box systems deciding who gets hired, fired, or promoted. It also means unions, worker councils, or new forms of collective bargaining that cover AI deployment. Fourth, targeted public support beyond just cash. Housing, healthcare, mental health support, childcare. These become even more critical in a world where traditional jobs are less stable. The point of AI should be to free human time and potential, not just to cut costs. Fifth, democratic control over key uses of AI. AI in policing, welfare, media, and elections can't just be left to private companies. You need public debate and rules around what's allowed, how it's audited, and who is held accountable when systems go wrong. Combine all this with something like UBI, and you don't get utopia, but you do get a society where AI reduces the worst forms of work instead of just making rich people richer. Most people have space to create, care, learn, and participate in culture. Human beings keep some agency over how the technology is actually used. That's the optimistic version. Now, tie it back to culture. If basic survival isn't tied to a traditional job, more people can spend their time on things that don't always pay, but deeply matter. Raising kids, looking after elders, making art, building community, studying, volunteering, exploring. Imagine a world where AI handles most of the boring, admin, and repetitive labour. You get a stable income floor, plus the option to earn more if you want. You have access to powerful tools to create things that used to require a whole studio or company. In that world, culture could explode in diversity. More voices, more stories, more local scenes, more niche communities. But the dark mirror is always there. The same tech can be used to trap people in narcissistic simulations, weaponize their data, and turn culture into a behavioural control system. The difference between those two futures is not the tech, it's the power structure wrapped around it. Here's the most dystopian and realistic twist. As AI fills more and more of our social, creative, and emotional lives, actually being with other humans is unmeditated. unoptimized ways becomes rare. Human-only schools, human-only restaurants and clubs, human-only dating scenes that ban AI profiles and AI filters. These will be marketed as premium. No bots, no filters, no synthetic interactions, just real people and all the mess that comes with them. Meanwhile, the cheaper default will be AI friends, AI lovers, AI therapists, AI entertainment, AI news. We split into two cultures. One where human contact is abundant and normal. Another where human contact is scarce and synthetic experiences fill the void. That's not about tech capacity. That's about class. And don't worry, we're coming to a close on this very soon. But let's get personal. You can't vote no on AI. It's already embedded into your feeds, your search results, your apps, your jobs, your school, your government services. The only real choices you have are how much of your emotional life you outsource to machines. How much of your time you give to systems that don't care about you beyond your data. Whether you become a passive consumer or a human that other humans can still rely on. You can pick the person who lets algorithms pick your friends, your partners, your taste, your politics. Or you can be the person who uses the tools but still build something human on top of them. Relationships that can't be paused. Art that carries risk. Conversations that are not optimized. Communities that aren't just Discord servers and feeds, but real people who know your name and could actually knock on your door. In a world where almost everything, images, voices, stories, bodies, can be faked, the rarest thing won't be content. It'll be life you can verify. Someone whose pain, effort, and risk are visible. Someone who can actually disappoint you because they are not a scripted character. Someone who can say no. AI will dominate the infrastructure of culture. It will power the platforms, generate the content, simulate the intimacy, and shape the narratives. But it cannot do one thing. It cannot live a life for you. So the real question isn't, will AI dominate culture? It's, when AI dominates culture, will there be anything recognisably human left in you?